talking to Dr. LMadu, and the topic is democracy in Nigeria. And of course, Dr. LMadu, some of the things that you have revealed in here are almost extraordinary, and we want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the solutions to some of these problems, because if everybody is stealing and getting as much as they possibly can, then there seems to be no viable solution. I think you've already mentioned the fact of what the State Department might be able to do, but let's talk at it from that angle.
B, everybody has to declare their assets before you get elected. And when you are elected, you have to declare assets at least every year. Just like here, you know, the president and the vice president, you know how much they make, you know, by their tax returns every year. No big deal about that. They should do that in Nigeria. People should be able to declare their assets if they want to run for office, declare their assets when they leave, so you know what they have and what they don't have. Okay, in the country now, you have every military officer wants to run for office. Every military officer is a millionaire. People who just got into the army in 1980, 1970, they are millionaires. They want to run for president. Where did the money come from? Not from their salary, obviously. You know that. And they weren't in business either. So where did the money come from? That's what we've told Mr. Obasanjo, you know, since he's trying, have all former military officers who served in political offices in the country declare their assets so that people can know where these millions they are spending comes from. You cannot have ex-military officers building, you know, buying airlines, buying shipping, buying shipping lines, all this, buying shipping lines, building universities. These are former military officers who earn nothing, having all this. Where is the money coming from? You see, those things have to be done. We give Mr. Obasanjo credit for having the courage to, you know, start at least
moving toward democracy.
Moving, you know, moving towards this things forcefully. But he has to do more. That to have the confidence of the people. Most of the people in the country knows who have stolen that money. They know whom they are. All they're saying is, hey, government, just do that. Why don't you say all the military officers declare their assets? Then we'll see how much they have, find out where they got the money. And 9 chances out of 10, most of it is stolen. You see?
Well, if you were to require that, but it seems to me that, you know, there's so much dishonesty going on that many people certainly wouldn't declare all of their resources and et cetera. So they would come up with almost any kind of figure to indicate that they don't have anything, wouldn't they? I mean, it would be difficult to track them down, even though, you know that they've got, I mean, it seems to me that if they had to do that they wouldn't be honest in reference to doing it.
Yep, so absolutely. Some of them might try that. But let me give you an example. If somebody was a lieutenant colonel in the army for a few years, then when he retired, he has a mansion of $2 million. Fine. He can let me explain how he came about $2 million in a few years as a lieutenant colonel. You know what their salary is. That's not even enough to build a good house. How much more having a mansion of $2 million? And most of them live in houses like that. Where did that money come from? We start from there. Then you can a good prosecutor and investigator can start getting into other things. Yeah, some of them, you know, launder their money through their families and all is fine. You can get your families to tell us exactly where all that money they're spending is coming from. You know, that can be done. I think one of the effective ways to restructure the tax system. Right now, the government doesn't know who is paying taxes and who is not paying, to be frank with you. They know the civil servants pay taxes because it's taken directly from their salaries, taken directly from their salary. But the average Joe Blow who is making $10 million a year, nobody can tell you how much taxes they pay. And so the tax structure has to be completely revamped and restructured so that the government will know who is in business and who is not in business. You know, to know exactly, have you paid, you know, your tax on this sum you made this year? Right now, the government cannot tell you that, you see. So that's very important for the government to do. Another good point here is to completely restructure the judicial system so it can have teeth. For example, if a judge orders a policeman to go and arrest somebody,
he has to do that.
Nobody will show up. He will just defy the order. Yeah, he will defy the order. A few days ago, I was reading in a newspaper, a judge sent summons to the deputy Senate president who was holding the hearings on this third term issue. A policeman blocked the servant of the warrant from going to serve the warrant. That cannot happen here. That'd be obstruction of justice. But nothing happened. So the judicial system has to be completely revamped and turned upside down in order to perform the duty it's supposed to do. You know.
Well, you know, Dr. LMadu, it does seem that with these problems confronting the state, people might just feel that it might be better to keep the current president in, because at least the state is moving. It might be almost standing still, but it has some structure. But if you don't, you know, if you bring in somebody else, it might be starting at the very, very beginning. You know, it's a terrible thing to say, but that's kind of the situation that you've left us with here.
And that's what some people who are, you know, campaigning for the third term are saying. Say, well, you know, if he leaves next year, somebody else might take over, and there'll be more chaos than we have now. In order to have stability and continuity, why don't we let him to stay 4 more years? That's what those people are saying. But at the same time, you know, it wouldn't be a good example to be coming from Nigeria. Nigeria is supposed to be the leader, not just of the Africa, but of the black world. And so it should be an example that black people can be able to govern themselves without too much problems and confusions. So if Nigeria can say, hey, okay, Obasanjo leaves next year, hand over to somebody. Then if Nigeria says, hey, that African country, we don't want you to be oppressing your people, you need to hand over, then they will listen. If we don't do that, we can't tell any other African country to be democratic. And they will say, hey, you just extended your president's term to 30, and why can't we do it here? You see, so that's what I'm concerned about. You know, example, a small country like Botswana, since independence in the 60s, there has never been any break in elections. Elections occur regularly the way it should occur. You see, this is a small country. So South Africa is doing the same now. Mbeki says he's stepping down at the end of his term. He's not extending it. So from that point of view, you know, if Nigeria's image, you know, has to be protected as the leader of the black world, Obasanjo should hand over next year, you know, to somebody else. He did it before in 1979. That's why I can give him credit for that. As a military leader, he was the first Nigerian army officer to hand over power peacefully to a civilian government in 79. So even though he hasn't said he's stepping down next year, I think he has common sense and is smart enough. He wants to protect his image and his, you know, legacy to step down and join Mandela as one of the elder statesmen of Africa. And I wish he would do that.
Okay, well, now let's look at the United States. We've got about 2.5 minutes. To speak to the United States in reference to this, what should the United States government do in reference to Nigeria itself? Because, you know, we've got all of that, it's got all that oil, and we need oil, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, I mean, what should our position be in reference to all of this?
Well, Nigeria is important to the United States, you know, even in economic terms, as oil and all that, but also in strategic terms, as the, you know, most powerful, you know, black countries south of the Sahara. And also even in the question of terrorism, Nigeria can play a very big role in helping the United States fight terrorism. But at the same time, the United States can help Nigerians, you know, by pressuring government officials to be accountable. You know, for example, oh yeah, Nigeria says, okay, they want their loans to be forgiven by the World Bank and the rest. And some of us are saying, fine, it's good to forgive those loans, but there has to be a catch. Every government official should declare his assets before we start forgiving any loans. No need for giving loans and people, exactly, they steal some more to accumulate more loans. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to help. So they should do that. They should say, hey, Mr. President, your vice president and governors want you to declare access to your own people in your country so they know how much you have and what you don't have. In that way, they can have confidence that if we forgive these loans, you know, the money is going to be here.
Where the money should go.
It's supposed to go to. No, not giving people, politicians, more excuse to loot some more and then accumulate more loans again that will be forgiven in 10 or 20 years again. So that's very important for the United States to make clear to the current president that we're not going to tolerate, you know, this happening. And like I said before, clamp down on visas for all governors and their cronies who either have been proven to have stolen or are perceived to have been stolen. In that way, it makes them think twice about where they're going to launder that money.
Okay, Dr. Madu, let me thank you. We're going to have to end here, but let me thank you for coming by and bringing us that very, very informative information in reference to what is happening in Nigeria today. And I think some of us are simply amazed at, so there is so much corruption, as you indicated. But let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.